Are you serious? Get off that game right now!
Whoa, wait, I'm in the middle of a match.
I don't care! Move!
The alarm clock rang loudly at 7 a.m., buzzing like an angry bee on the nightstand. Jake Miller groaned and rolled over in his messy bed. 5 more minutes, he muttered. 5 minutes turned into 30. Sunlight poured through the blinds of his small bedroom in a suburban house in Ohio. School started at 8 o'clock, but Jake wasn't worried. He rarely worried about anything. His room looked like a tornado had passed through it. Clothes on the floor, half-finished homework on the bed, empty snack wrappers everywhere. Jake was known in school for one thing, being the laziest student in Jefferson High School. He finally checked his phone. 7:52. Whatever, Jake said, yawning. First period is boring anyway. Instead of rushing to school, he opened a video game on his phone and played for another 20 minutes. By the time he finally dragged himself out of bed, the school day had already started. Jake entered Jefferson High around 9:15, strolling through the hallway as if he owned the place. His friend Marcus leaned against a locker. Late again? Marcus asked. Jake shrugged. History class is pointless. Why learn about dead people? Marcus laughed. One day you're going to get in serious trouble. Jake grinned. Relax. Teachers always forgive me. Unfortunately for Jake, not all teachers felt that way. As he walked into history class, Mrs. Alvarez stopped writing on the board and looked straight at him. Mr. Miller, she said calmly, nice of you to join us. The class chuckled. Jake slid into his seat. Sorry, he said lazily. Mrs. Alvarez crossed her arms. This is the 4th time this week. It's only Tuesday, Jake replied. That made the class laugh again. But Mrs. Alvarez didn't smile. After class ended, Mrs. Alvarez asked Jake to stay. He leaned back in his chair, casually. Yes, ma'am. She handed him a stack of missing assignments. You have 7 incomplete assignments, Jake. He looked at them like they were useless junk mail. I'll get to them eventually. Mrs. Alvarez shook her head. Jake, you're smart. I can see that. But you waste your ability. Jake shrugged. School's boring. She sighed. Let me tell you something. Laziness is comfortable today, but painful tomorrow. Jake gave a lazy smile. Tomorrow sounds like a future problem. Mrs. Alvarez looked disappointed. One day you'll understand. Jake grabbed the papers and stuffed them into his backpack without looking. During lunch, Jake sat with Marcus and Sarah at a table near the cafeteria window. Sarah was one of the best students in school. You still haven't done your math project? She asked. Jake shook his head while eating fries. I'll copy someone's. Sarah frowned. That project is worth 30% of the grade. Jake pointed his fork at Marcus. Marcus did it. Marcus laughed. Don't drag me into this. Jake grinned. Come on, man. Let me borrow it. Marcus shook his head. No way. You need to do your own work for once. Jake leaned back. Why work hard when shortcuts exist? Sarah rolled her eyes. Because shortcuts eventually run out. Jake ignored her. Later that week, the science teacher, Mr. Carter, announced something that made Jake groan. A group research project, Mr. Carter said. Groans filled the classroom. You will work in teams of 3. Jake smiled. Group projects were perfect. It meant someone else would do the work. Mr. Carter started assigning groups. Jake Miller, Sarah Kim, and Daniel Brooks. Jake leaned back confidently. Perfect. 2 of the smartest students in class. He wouldn't need to do anything. After school, the group met in the library. Daniel opened his laptop. We should divide the work, Daniel said. Sarah nodded. I'll handle the research. Daniel said, I'll make the slides. They both looked at Jake. Jake shrugged. What do you want me to do? Sarah thought for a moment. You can present. Jake grinned. Talking is easy. Daniel looked skeptical. You actually have to understand the topic. Jake waved his hand dismissively. Relax. I'll wing it. Sarah exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. Over the next week, Sarah and Daniel worked hard. They researched climate change, collected statistics, and built professional presentation. Jake did absolutely nothing. Instead, he spent his afternoons watching TV, scrolling social media, and playing video games. His mom occasionally knocked on his door. "Jake, shouldn't you be studying?" "I'll do it later," he always replied. Later never came. The night before the presentation, Sarah called Jake. "Did you review the slides?" she asked. Jake was lying on the couch eating chips. Not yet." "Jake," she said, "you're presenting tomorrow." "I'll read them in the morning." Sarah groaned. "You can't just improvise scientific data." Jake laughed. "I'm good at talking. Trust me." Sarah wasn't convinced. The classroom lights dimmed as Daniel opened the slides. Sarah explained the research perfectly. Then came Jake's part. He stood up confidently, but as he looked at the slide filled with graphs and statistics, his mind went blank. So climate change is, The class waited. Jake glanced at the screen. Numbers meant nothing to him. Basically, temperatures are changing a lot. A few students snickered. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow. Jake stumbled through the rest awkwardly. When it ended, Sarah and Daniel looked frustrated. After class, Mr. Carter spoke to the group. "Sarah and Daniel did excellent work," he said. Then he looked at Jake. "But teamwork requires participation." Jake tried to smile. "Yeah, about that." Mr. Carter sighed. "Your grade will reflect your effort." Jake didn't seem concerned until he saw the result. Sarah, A. Daniel, A. Jake, D. For the first time, Jake felt uneasy. 2 weeks later, report cards arrived. Jake sat at the kitchen table as his mom opened the envelope. She read silently. Then her eyes widened. "Jake, you're failing 3 classes." Jake looked uncomfortable. "It's not that bad." His mom placed a report card on the table. "This is serious." Jake shrugged again. "I'll fix it." She sighed. "You've been saying that all year." The next day, Jake was called to the school counselor's office. Mrs. Thompson looked at his academic record. "Jake, your teachers say you're capable but unmotivated." Jake leaned back. "School just isn't my thing." Mrs. Thompson folded her hands. "What is your thing?" Jake thought. "Video games? Sleeping?" He didn't know. She said gently, "If you continue like this, graduation will be difficult." Jake forced a smile. Plenty of time left. But for the first time, doubt crept into his mind. One afternoon, Jake visited Marcus at his part-time job at a grocery store. Marcus was stocking shelves. "Man, I'm tired," Marcus said. Jake laughed. "You work too hard." Marcus shrugged. "I'm saving for college." Jake frowned. College sounded exhausting. Marcus looked at him seriously. "What's your plan after high school?" Jake opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time in his life, he realized he had no plan. The semester's biggest exam arrived. Jake hadn't studied, not even a little. When the test papers were handed out, panic spread through him. Questions looked unfamiliar. Formulas made no sense. Students around him wrote confidently. Jake stared at the paper. He guessed answers randomly. When time ended, he knew the truth. He had failed. Results came back a week later. 38%. Jake stared at the paper. The red ink felt like a punch to the stomach. After school, he sat alone on the bleachers outside the football field. For the first time, being lazy didn't feel funny. It felt heavy. Marcus sat beside him. "Tough day?" Jake nodded quietly. "I think I messed up everything." Marcus spoke honestly. "You're not dumb, Jake. You're just comfortable doing nothing." Jake stared at the ground. "I thought things would always work out." Marcus said gently, "Things work out when people work." Jake sighed. "What if it's too late?" Marcus shook his head. "It's not too late until you quit." Jake looked up. For the first time in years, he considered trying. That night, Jake opened his backpack. The stack of unfinished assignments was still there. He slowly pulled one out. Math homework. He didn't understand the first problem. Normally he would quit, but this time he opened a textbook, then a tutorial video. An hour passed. Then 2. For the first time in years, Jake was actually studying. The next weeks were different. Jake arrived to school on time, sometimes even early. Teachers noticed. Mrs. Alvarez smiled when he turned in completed homework. Nice work, Jake. It wasn't perfect. He still struggled, but he kept trying. Slowly, his grades began improving. At the end of the semester, final exams arrived. Jake studied every night. The tests were still difficult, but this time he recognized the questions. When the results came back, he held his breath. C in history, B in science, C+ in math. He wasn't a top student on the last day of school. Passed. Jake sat outside with Marcus and Sarah. Sarah smiled. I'm proud of you. Jake laughed. I'm proud of me too. Marcus asked, so what changed? Jake thought for a moment. I realized something. What? Jake looked toward the school building. Being lazy feels easy until life gets hard. Sarah nodded. And now? Jake stood up, stretching. Now the lazy student is officially retired. Marcus laughed. We'll see. Jake grinned. Yeah, but this time I'm actually trying. And for the first time in his life, Jake Miller walked toward the future, not as the laziest student in school, but as someone ready to work for it. Every time we visit at De'Aret Stories, we must learn a lesson.